Well, it all started one day as I was in my car on my way to a speaking engagement. My cell phone rang and I looked down to see who was calling. Turned out it was a close friend of mine, someone I speak to almost every week. I assumed this would be one of our normal conversations. We'll talk about sports, music, have a few laughs, but man was I ever in for a surprise. When I answered the phone, the first words out of his mouth were, "Hey man, I think I'm engaged." Now, there's about a million things wrong with that. Number one, how does a person think they're engaged? Either you are or you're not. Number two, as I said earlier, we talk almost every week. He had never even mentioned being interested in someone, nonetheless dating, being engaged, and now on your way to being married. Well, I began to ask questions, and as it turned out, my friend had rekindled a relationship with someone he had dated years prior. They reconnected, things just moved a lot faster than they ever expected. Now, if you think the story has a happy ending, you are dead wrong. This went about as bad as you would expect it to go from someone who thought he was engaged to someone he had been talking to for less than a week. But something else really stood out to me. There was a point in our conversation where he was recalling when his, at that point, fiance asked him, "So why did we break up in the first place?" His response was, "Well, I was in undergrad, I was trying to figure out my life, and then my mom died, and I was just really confused. And at the same time, you were in grad school pursuing your PhD, and we were just on opposite ends of the world, and I didn't know how to handle it." And then he said, "And it's not like anyone ever handed me a blueprint of how to deal with these things." That's it, a blueprint. That's the very thing people need. We need guidelines and a template, some kind of instruction manual to figure life out. Most of us can think through big mistakes we've made in our life that if we could go back, we would totally undo them. But we can't go back in time. But what we can do is set ourselves up for the future. And that's the goal of this show. I'll be sharing with you some of my areas of expertise, as well as some of my biggest failures. And at the same time, I'm going to bring in other people, people that I feel that are subject matter experts that can help you. And we're going to be a resource for you, and in some ways, even a support group. But it won't just be motivational and inspirational. We're going to give you some practical strategies to help you navigate life. It really will be informational. It will be educational. But the goal is that at the end of this thing, we can figure this thing out. We can do the best that we can. And whether we're talking about relationships, whether we're talking about work, whether we're talking about trying to find our purpose and our passion, the idea is that this can transform our lives, make us better people, and maybe even help to make this a better world. This is the BluePrint Show.